Horoscopes. People either love them or hate them, or they use them as a reason to justify having a very bad personality. I'm kidding. Maybe. I used to really fight off the idea of horoscopes, astrology. I said, no, that's not real. It's not fun. No. And you know what? I read Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead for my book club, and there was a whole through line talking about astrology and the way that it shapes and moves us, and it really got me thinking, you know what? I think I like it, and I'm not fighting it anymore. So I have decided to make a list based on the characteristics and the stunning traits of every sign in the zodiac. I'm sure nobody is going to be offended in the comments. Everybody's going to think, oh yes, that's right. That's right. That's me. Please, these were just impulse picks, and I think I have some justification for every single one of them. I've been in a little bit of a slump, okay? And I feel like this would be great for me if somebody did this. And if you do feel like you are in a slump, you are not alone. About a decade ago, Americans used to read collectively 500 billion pages a year, and that has gone down significantly since. And that is why I am so happy to be partnering with Thrift Books as they introduced the 500 billion page challenge. It is a nationwide reading movement designed to help Americans fall back in love with reading. Don't worry, this isn't a challenge forcing you to read 5 books a week. This is just an incremental, soft challenge to invite you to read a couple of pages a day. That is the best way to get started with a habit. I always say you wouldn't run a marathon without a little bit of training. In order to read books, you have to start softly and slowly, and with books that really motivate and intrigue you. 17% of Americans can't remember the last time that they read a book. Oh baby, please, don't break my heart. 87% of Americans say that a doable reading goal is 3 pages a day. It can be done. And of course, getting started is always the hardest part. So this is why this is a group challenge. Let's do it together. 57% of Americans say the hardest part is getting started. This is your sign. Start right now. I personally have fallen off the bandwagon of reading every single day. It used to be something that I would start my day with, and this year has felt very rocky and felt like I really am kind of stumbling through it. So I am partaking in the challenge, okay? So if you would like to join me on this challenge, you can do so by visiting www.thriftbooks.com/challenge to join the 500 billion page challenge. Reading doesn't require a big reset or a big goal. It just starts with a few pages. Join Thrift Books for the 500 billion page challenge and read a couple of pages a day together. Click the link in my bio. Thank you so much to Thrift Books. Thank you. And let's get into the Capricorns, baby. Okay, so Capricorns are probably the easiest one for me to do because I myself am a Capricorn. I just celebrated my birthday on January 10th, and so many people wish me happy birthday, so thank you so much. There's nothing more validating for a Capricorn to be seen and loved and adored for all of their hard work. So thank you. Basically, the way that I'm going to go through this is I went onto CoStar.com, which is the famous astrology app, and they had very brief synopsis of each trait, like bubble. There we go. Okay. Trait bubble of each sign, and I'm just going to read those out, and then I'm going to let you know what books I feel align with those characteristics. So let's get into it. For Capricorn, they say full-grown adult since age 6. True. The responsible friend, absolutely. Motivated by duty, Takes a while to warm up to people. Yeah, suppresses any emotion that gets in the way of success. Absolutely. I could not agree more with those parts of me. I made a video a little while ago talking about books that feel like winter. I mentioned wanting to make a video about horoscopes and astrology signs aligning with books, and this was one of the books that I chose for Capricorn, and it's kind of always stuck, and that is EILEEN by Ottessa Moshfegh. Now, hear me out, okay? This already just feels like a winter book, so I naturally will associate that with Capricorn tendencies, at least in my hemisphere. Okay, I'm a dead winter baby. EILEEN for me feels like a winter book, already aligns with Capricorn, but also I think it's very strong female characters in this book. This is a book about a young woman. She lives with an abusive father in a weird, strange town, and there's this very strong, independent woman that comes in and kind of jostles up everything that she previously knew. I don't know, it oddly just feels very Capricornian to me. And I had no problem picking this one. I think there's a variety of books that I could choose for Capricorns, but this one, if we're talking about fiction, weirdly relates to me. And the second book that I think is just very, 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 very Capricorn mentality, unfortunately, okay? I am doing the pros and I am doing the cons of Capricorn because I'm very emotionally intelligent, is Trust by Hernan Diaz. Yeah. That is the cons of a Capricorn. If you don't know what Trust is about a high-ranking New Yorker and the way that he just got it all. But is it really how he says it is? Or was there somebody else behind the scenes? I think that Trust really encapsulates kind of the ruthlessness that a lot of Capricorns have in looking to find success. I personally feel that sometimes. I'm not a ruthless person, but I would just rather sit and work all day in my apartment, make sure that I'm doing my checklist. That to me is a beautiful day, truly. And I think that Trust is examining the ways that we value people who work excessively, but also a lot of the ways that in order to be that successful, you have to be a little cutthroat in the worst ways possible. And I am trying to be less. This makes it sound like I'm like stabbing my best friend if they get ahead of me, but I'm not like that at all. I'm just trying to find an equilibrium between loving to work so much and having freedom in my life that doesn't feel constrained by work. But I love working. Okay, I love it. So that is my my examination into myself. Okay, let's go into Aquarius. My brother is an Aquarius, and I was just asking one of my other Aquarius friends what traits he has. I sent him the books that I'm going to be putting on this list, and he said never heard of them. So that feels very Aquarius. The Aquarius traits are purposefully esoteric, no feelings, just concepts, actually believes in conspiracy theories, love that one, more in love with humanity as a whole than individuals, always feels like an outcast, fetishizes personal freedom. I had a little bit of difficulty with this. This was probably the hardest one that I did. I think I've landed on some good ones. For Aquarius, I have the Patrick Radden Keefe compilation of essays titled Rogues, True Stories of Grifters, Killers, Rebels, and Crooks. Now, this sounds like a very negative connotation for an Aquarius, but the reason I put this in here was it was people who feel like they are naturally ostracized for the things that they do. Now, a lot of the people in this book are not good people, but I think the way that they think of things, leaning into naturally believing in conspiracy theories, I think that this is what matches to that energy. Some of these stories were stronger than others, but it was really just interesting people who had glaringly different ways of viewing the world. Like I said, not a lot of these people were great, but some of them were positive. There's a great last chapter, which I don't really think belongs in this whole compilation, about Anthony Bourdain, who I think was a visionary and sensitive and incredibly open to so many different experiences. And I feel like that maybe is what an Aquarius is, leaning into a book that talks about feeling ostracized, fetishized personal freedom, always feels like an outcast, more in love with humanity as a whole than individuals, no feelings, just concepts. I put The Virgin Suicides. I hope I can say that word on YouTube. YouTube, it's the name of a book, okay? I always remember, I'm like, did I finish this book? I can't remember, but I know the story enough, and I know it's vastly different than the movie, but I think that this really explores wanting to live and be open and wanting to have that personal freedom when it's so constrained against you. This is the story of a family of young girls who were so pressed down from who they wanted to be, and this kind of like nihilism in them and the way that they viewed the world, the fascination that so many people had around them. I don't know. I just think it's the ultimate kind of sadness, but I think it weirdly characterizes what an Aquarius might feel. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now we get into the Pisces. This one was very easy to do. Very, very easy because there's quite literally a book that I can say matches perfectly to Pisces. But let's talk about who a Pisces is. Somehow both 5 and 50 years old at once. Thinks everything is a sign. Can't remember if they dreamt it or if it actually happened. Excessively romantic, prone to fantasy, no boundaries. The books that I think match perfectly with this, water books as well, is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. Quite literally, a woman has an affair with a seaman. Yeah, prone to fantasy. Okay, wildly romantic, yes. Sign her up, scales and all. Absolutely. That's what she's chosen. I love that book. I also think Melissa Broder is hilarious. Anything that she writes is a fun ride to me. I loved The Pisces. Okay, I loved it. I know some people don't like it, and that's totally fine. Just lean into how absurd it is. Don't take it too seriously. Don't look for anything aside from a fun time in that book. Yeah. The next one is The Seas by Samantha Hunt. I feel like I don't talk about this book enough. And every time I talk about this book, I say I don't think I talk about this book enough. This is all about a seaside town that is also touched by aquatic creatures. The fantasy of that. Is it real? Is it not real? Overly romantic. This book is steeped in that. You feel like you are reading a story from the 90s. It feels like it's perpetually fall. I've never watched Gilmore Girls, but this feels not adjacent to that, really, but kind of. You know, I know what this mother and daughter combination looked like in this book. This is a great book, and I sold it, but I know it'll come back into my life. I loved this. Those feel like Pisces to me. I was about to say the Pisces. Okay, and so after that, we have Aries. I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm just thinking of all the Aries that I know. My best friend is an Aries. My baby. Aries are categorized by no filter, gets angry, then forgets why they were angry, thinks everything is a game they can win, will do anything on a dare, and easily bored. First books that came to mind, Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. And I know every Aries is going to say, why would you choose that book for me? That's not why. But hear me out, okay? From what I remember, that's an extremely pessimistic book, okay? No filter, right? Gets angry, then forgets why they were angry. That's an angry little man. Holding you to that, okay? Easily bored. Yeah, I feel like that is that book. It's worth a reread for me. I think that it's worth a reread. I stand by that decision. You can fight me in the comments, but I stand by that decision. And the second one that I choose, which is kind of a stretch, but hear me out. Okay, I promise that there's a reason for this. Did I even take the book out? Please tell me that I did. Yes, I did. Oh, and look at, I swear to God, look at thrift books right there. Look at that. Yeah, okay. Sign up for that challenge. Second one that I want to add into Aries, and I would proudly want to have in my category, is Madame Bovary by Gustav Flaubert. Listen to me. Specifically for the character of Emma Bovary, I think that she needs to have a whole reclamation of who she is. I loved her character, and I've talked about it before, but this was, in my opinion, Flaubert writing about himself through the lens of Emma Bovary. He was a very mischievous, very liberal in the way that he lived his life, and Emma Bovary is that, okay? No filter. No, she's living her life. She is just messing around. Every guy in town put me down for thinking of someone new. Name that song, okay? Gets angry and then forgets why they were angry perpetually. Thinks everything is a game they can win. Maybe not, okay? A little bit of sadness. Very sad ending, okay? I will give it that. Will do anything on a dare. Yeah, I'm sure she would. Easily bored, yes. Her whole life is based on boredom and the way that she's told that she has to live versus how she actually wants to live. I think yes. I think that's an Aries, sure. I'm sticking by it. Taurus just wants to cuddle. Is a homebody. All or nothing, no in between. Wears the same outfit every day. Hates big changes. The book that jumped out to me for this is Stoner by John Williams. Do I need to explain? If you have read this book, this is the most banal and tedious life of a man who is basically living for everybody else, doesn't want big changes, just appeasing, homebody. I'm sure he was wearing the same clothes every day. I've been watching, when I go and visit my parents, I've been watching a lot of Alfred Hitchcock. And I always look at the people in the Alfred Hitchcock movies and I think, I know that they only owned about 2 suits and they definitely stunk up those suits. I wonder how smelly people were in the 50s, right? Stoner was definitely wearing the same clothes. I don't think he was smelly, but wearing the same clothes every day checks out. I stand by that. That Taurus. Yes. Oh, and then I didn't really know what else to choose, but out of the books that I've read, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Now, I understand how so many people are saying, yeah, but isn't that an October read? Isn't that a little bit of a spooky dooky story? Yes, kind of. It's not like really that spooky. But homebody, yes. And then we have Gemini. Gemini, they say, is the zodiac sign that people do not like, that gets the worst rep. I like Geminis. They also say that Capricorns and Geminis do not go together at all. But I like Geminis. I've never had a bad interaction with a Gemini. Even though Aries are my best friend, I've had some, I get along with everybody for the most part, but my most friction, I would say, is with Aries, which is good. I like a challenge. Anyway, Gemini, charismatic, uses humor as a crutch, could talk to a brick wall, arguments is flirting, knows a little about everything. Well, for this, of course, I had to lean into the comedic books that I love. This was very easy for me to choose because I'm going off of charisma, humor, could talk to a brick wall, arguments is flirting, and knows a little bit about everything. There's 2 men in my life whose books I love. John Waters' Crackpot. Love John Waters. Biting, hilarious. Love everything that he says. Love that he's just a little bit different. And if I was to ever draw a mustache on my face, I would want it to mirror his, okay? A little bit of eyeliner goes a long way on the upper lip. This is all just his musings on culture. At the time, I think this was published in the 80s, so it's a lot of 80s culture, which I love. I should have been born in the 80s. This is biting, hilarious, love everything about it. Charismatic, yes, please. And the other one is, of course, David Sedaris. This is Theft by Finding. This is all of his diaries before he made it big. But you do start to see the evolution of somebody who is starting to turn a tide on their life. He started out as basically nothing. He was addicted to drugs, but he kept a constant diary, and that is what ultimately would be his calling card in life, a writer and a hilarious humorist. I actually went and saw him read in New York City as a gift with a friend of mine who we've both fallen in love with, David Sedaris. It was wonderful. He was so nice, honestly. Gemini, you're getting glowing reviews from me. Glowing reviews, and I refuse to be subdued in my choices. And now we have Cancer. I'm going to be a little honest with you. A lot of these I'm just associating with the people that I know that are these signs, and a lot of the Cancers that I know are very sensitive people, a lot more sensitive than I am, and I associate Cancer with a love sign. My very best friend in high school is a Cancer. Other people that I've known in my life that I've had really intense connections with are Cancers, and I just associate this with love. I feel like that pans out. So Cancer sign, sensitive. Maybe I'm associating it with being sensitive because it's the first one here. Seeks comfort, forgives but never forgets, only has one boundary but it is very firm, takes on other people's problems. On Earth, we're briefly gorgeous. Personally, was not like a huge fan of this book, but so many people love this book. It's lyrical, it's mystical, it's true love, it's exploring sexual identity and who we are, and that reeks of Cancer to me. That reeks of love. It's basically poetry, but it's not. I used to think it was a poetry collection, but it's not, right? But I would just say Ocean Vuong's writing in general feels very, very much steeped in love and kind of slight obsession, but in a very padded and beautiful way. Also, I would put Open Water on this as well. And I read this years ago, but I remember this being a really, really popular book, and it deals with a complicated love that is divided in a way that's outside forces are pulling these people apart. But I envision it as a love book from what I remember. And I want to put that in there. I also, as I was finishing up, I would maybe put Angels in America on this. Yeah, because that feels like love. That feels like people wanting to love one another and not necessarily being able to. One of the greatest plays of all time. I would put that on there as well. A little Secret 3 one. Secret 3. And then we have Leo. I love Leos. I mean, I love everybody. Okay. Leos exude warmth and creativity. A little bit vain. I love that. Really big personality. Wants to stand out. Interested in luxury. For this, I put Sex and the City by Candace Bushnell. I also think it's because I've been reading and listening to a lot of commentary on Sex and the City, but I did listen to the audiobook of the original Sex and the City, and I had a wonderful experience with it. I was walking down Fifth Avenue, and I was listening to these luxurious stories of these women and the way that they're being taken out on these dates, and it's not a central character. It's very different than the TV show. You don't have Carrie as the epicenter, although it is basically Candace Bushnell talking about people around her. It's thinly veiled as her own experiences, but there's not like a central character. It is very much looking into the lives of like dozens of New Yorkers, but everybody feels like a very main character energy. Obviously, tons of luxury, wants to be seen, and that just makes me feel very Leo. Also, New York City as an entity as well feels like a Leo. And then I have Wetlands, which is just a wild book, and I always forget about it, and then I think about it, and I say, that book's a trip. You want to talk about wanting to be the center of attention? That book. Crazy girl doing crazy things. Not as disturbing as some books that I've ever read, but just gross and balls to the wall. Okay? Balls to the wall. And then, of course, we have Virgo. Virgo is my compatible sign, right? Virgos need to feel useful, has a quick fix for everything, judgmental but with good intentions, exceptional spatial awareness, a million ideas per second. I have to put one of my OGs for spatial awareness. I'm really stretching the definition of things. Classic Krakauer by John Krakauer. Okay, this is somebody who feels like he is just existing in this world to be useful, judgmental, but with good intentions. He quite literally profiles a lot of the outside world. Okay, this is all just his essays that were submitted to literary outdoor magazines, and this is, I think, the best way to kind of get into Krakauer, but I think it's probably the most grounded in the way that he's assessing things, so I'm going to put that in there as a Virgo recommendation. Oh, and then, okay, interesting. I chose Master and Margarita. Okay. I think the million ideas per second is the tip off for that one, because that book is going everywhere, going a little bit of everywhere. If you've ever read it, I was going to put 100 Years of Solitude, but I've really been recommending that book a lot lately, and I think kind of in the same vein, obviously very different themes, but I think of that magical realism and just a lot of the storylines that are intersecting and how you kind of have to jump on the wings of one story to get to the next story is very much inhabited in the world of Master and Margarita. Okay. Interesting. All right. Okay. Whatever. I guess that's it. Libra. I have a really good friend who's a Libra, and when I tell you that these characteristics are her to a T, it's insane. Hates being alone, really good aesthetics, conflict avoidant, sees every side, prone to fantasy, and can't make decisions. That's my girl. And I love her. I chose Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. That feels very much kind of like the flippancy, not being able to make decisions, being very much avoidant of conflict. This is all about young girls living in New York City and just kind of daydreaming and going through life and feeling like, oh, we need to go to this party, and then we really need to make sure that we're wearing the most amazing thing possible, the good aesthetics. I liked this book a lot when it first came out, and I think it's worth a reread. I've given this to a lot of my girlfriends in New York City. It just feels really reflective of when I first came up in New York City in my super early 20s when I first moved here, and just the people that I loved and associated myself with, and also my friend that's a Libra. I've had insane nights out with her, and that really reminds me of the fun that we've had. The second one is Mrs. Caliban by Laura Ingalls. If you've ever read this book, you know that this is a wild book about like a 1950s housewife that gets it on with a man who is, what is he? He's like a reject from a power plant. Is that right? He's something. Basically the shape of water. But hear me out. Prone to fantasy. Yeah. And hates being alone. 1950s housewife. Checks out. Scorpio. I do be loving me some Scorps. My mom is a Scorpio. I wish I had her emotional range. I truly do. I just don't have that emotional range. And I love when people are emotionally charged. And that is a Scorpio. I've had many Scorpios in my life. And I just like that they're crazy. I love them. Primary emotion is betrayal. Okay. Looks cool in a leather jacket. Sure. Why not? Okay with uncomfortable silence. Can't be sure if they're serious or joking. Eyes that look into your soul. Now, I know that all of those traits are happening, but I just chose some books that I think are crazy, just like Scorpios are. I'm going with Crash, J.G. Ballard. Gross, disgusting, wild, super transgressive fiction, but also feels like a Scorpio. Looks cool in a leather jacket. Yeah. This is about people who are intrigued by car crashes. Let's just say that much. Can't be sure if they're serious or joking. This is serious, but it feels like they're joking. Crazy book, even crazier movie. Also, The Story of the Eye. One of the gnarliest books ever written. By, like, a long time ago, too. Okay? When was it published? I'll put it up here. Crazy. Crazy. Scorpios, you're crazy. And it's a compliment. It's a compliment. In a weird and wild way. And then last, but definitely not least, Sagittarius. I love me some Sagittarius too. I've said that about every single person. I love everybody. I love everybody equally. You're all so wonderful. Thank you. Sagittarius. No indoor voice. Yes. Forms opinions off of pure emotion. Sure. Obsessed with self-improvement. Wields their truth like a blunt weapon, and friendliest person at the party. Another one of my very close friends is a Sagittarius, and yes, he is this person. First book is a stretch, okay? Some people are going to hate it, but I'm going with it. Ham on Rye by Charles Bukowski. I chose this book because of Charles Bukowski, okay? I used to read a lot of his books when I was younger. I had a boyfriend in high school who was really into him, so I read it, okay? But I actually really loved Ham on Rye. I thought it was an amazing book, and even if you're not into Bukowski, this is a great piece of autofiction, I would say. Yeah, it's autofiction. Forms opinions off of pure emotion. I would say the rawness and the emotion that Bukowski has in a lot of his writing is just pure emotion. There's like he's just putting stuff on paper, okay? And I think that Ham on Rye is a really good representation of that. And then, of course, if we're going to talk about life at the party, no indoor voice, obsessed with self-improvement, we have to talk about the OG, The Great Gatsby. This was a book I obviously read in high school, as a lot of American students do. But this book is truly, I think, a Sagittarius. Life at the party, self-improvement. What is Gatsby's routine, okay? It's all about also Nick trying to understand how somebody's able to make it happen. No indoor voice? Yeah, sure, whatever. I just imagined him at a party saying, yes, welcome to my beautiful party. That's Gatsby. And that is also a Sagittarius. And there you have it, guys. That is my long-winded recommendations for all of the signs. I would love to know what book you think you are. I think this is just really fun, okay? This is really fun. I enjoyed making this quite a bit. If you couldn't tell, I was yapping up a storm. Anyway, you guys are wonderful. You're fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one. I'm a Capricorn. I can't show that much emotion.